Welcome back to Anything is Possible. Today I am going to go through my journey from leaving my house all the way to getting down to Lake Chapala in Mexico, which is a trip I did driving all by myself with my dog and 2 cats. And I have Felix here with me today. He wants to say hi. Yes, he was a trooper on the journey, but every time I come out in the patio here, he wants to join me. Anyway, so I have a little script here, which I'm going to have to refer to, but basically on June 8th of 2022, I signed all the papers on my house sale and put everything out in the carport and posted on Facebook and let everybody just come and drag everything away, and within hours the carport was cleaned out. So I was ready to go. I wanted to talk a little bit about the problems with getting a North Dakota license plates, which everybody was recommending rather than going with Oregon ones that I had. I just was getting no results back from them at all. And then I found out that I didn't have the title to my car. So the day before I moved, I actually had to go to the credit union, get a letter from them saying that the loan had been paid off, go back to DMV, submit that, and they actually issued a whole new title and registration for the car. So the numbers on the car changed for registration. So basically, months later, I got a notice from South Dakota that it didn't go through, which was clear because by then the numbers on the registration had changed. So I just go ahead and went with Oregon license plates. The day before, the house was pretty well cleared out for everything. I had my luggage by the door, and the animals were getting pretty kind of didn't know what was happening. And so I have a picture of Wookie sitting on the top of the luggage, like, don't forget me. And I couldn't believe it, but actually Gator, my little gray and white cat, he went and sat next to his cat carrier, which is just unheard of because, you know, they don't like going to the vet and they don't like the cat carrier, but boy, he knew that we were going to be getting out of there. So the next morning, we got up, and it was just such a strange thing to walk out that door for the last time. Had the kitties in their little kitty crate, and Wookie in the front seat, and he was ready to go. And we just headed south. So we locked the place up, and we drove past Mount Shasta, of course.
This is a calendar that I did that shows where I was each day. I started with the first night was Red Bluff, second night was Buttonwillow, third night was Blythe, and then I stayed in Tucson with my relatives for a while. I used Google Maps. I turned on tracking, so basically the GPS tracked every place that I stopped along the way. So this shows the exact route that I took on the way down.
My goal for the first day was to get south of Redding. I stopped and got gas just before I crossed the border in Oregon, and I'm so glad I did because the price of gas was $1 more a gallon in California than it was in Oregon. First night I got a room in Motel 6. I had tried to make a Travelodge reservation, but they wanted $20 per pet. So that would add $60 to the hotel beyond. I didn't think it mattered that much to me. I'm perfectly happy with Motel 6. It's a place to sleep, it's comfortable, and no questions asked ever about pets, including cats. So in terms of traveling with the animals, there was some complaining from the kitties. I was on the freeway, so I really couldn't stop, and it turns out Felix got car sick the first day. And from then on, they really didn't make any complaints at all. They kind of figured out who was going to sit where in the carrier, and for the rest of the trip, that was pretty much it. I've never had any more car sickness, and really no more meowing and complaining about driving. We stayed that first night in Red Bluff, and so that first day I actually drove for 6 hours, and I was pretty fatigued that first day, but I did get a lot of mileage in, seeing as how I started about 1 in the afternoon.
This section of map shows my travel the first day from Southern Oregon down to Red Bluff. At Red Bluff, we got all settled into our Motel 6. Both the kitties, Felix and Gator, found places to hang out and settled right in, and Wookie did too.
The next morning, I got up and headed out. I got into kind of a routine of stopping by Starbucks and getting an Americano coffee in the morning and just hitting the road. So June 10th, the second day, was a long stretch. I drove all the way to Buttonwillow, and it was just a really boring drive. I can say nothing good about that stretch of highway. It's just, there's nothing in that area that would attract me to ever move there. So I use an app called Bring Fido, which will make motel reservations for you at different motels that you want, and so they're all dog friendly or pet friendly motels. So I decided it had been such a long haul for 2 days in a row. I wanted to have kind of a cushy place, and I wanted to stop at a Best Western. So Bring Fido called and made the reservation, and then they let me know a little while later that Best Western didn't want cats. And then they finally decided that they would make an exception. So they were going to charge me another $20 per pet, just like Travelodge. I just decided to heck with it. I'm just going to stay in Motel 6s from now on. And you can just drive as much as you want, stop, find a Motel 6, walk up, pay you the money, and you're done. And they have no questions asked, no surcharges, no extra payments for pets. So
the third day was driving from Buttonwillow to Blythe.
Don't encourage posting where you are, especially if you're traveling alone. I would post the following day where I had been the previous night. But just in case somebody's following you, it's best not to put anything on social media about your exact location. So I wanted to get over the grapevine while it was still fairly cool. It was June, of course, and it's starting to get pretty toasty as you head south. And I took I-10 to San Bernardino, and I stopped at the very first town that seemed like it was actually the nicest town I'd seen in a long time, which is Redlands, California. Very nice little town. And so I stopped and found a really nice grocery store and picked up some groceries. City of Redlands, it was a big, beautiful campus with big trees and shady lawns. So I got out and walked Wookie around there, and we enjoyed a break, and then hit the road, and it started getting, again, very hot and arid and dry at that point. I kept driving all the way to Blythe, which was where I was planning. I will make a short day the following day to get to Tucson. where I was going to stay with my cousins and see my two cousins and my aunt, who was almost 100 years old. I don't have a lot of pictures from this whole stretch because, quite honestly, I was driving the whole time and there really wasn't anything very picture worthy. I just drove on through. I don't have any way of recording while I'm driving. And I actually got into the beauty of the desert there. There was a lot of jagged peaks and cactuses and mounds of tumbleweeds and you know, and certain lighting, and they're just beautiful. And it's so interesting to see the plants that adapt to living in that kind of environment with the sand and little bits of rain that they get. But so June 13th, I spent the entire day reconnecting with my family and being with my cousins and my aunt, and it was really wonderful. Getting across the border. Everybody has questions about that. It was actually it was kind of a little more hassle than I thought, but oh, and about my car too. I had gotten an extra key, and the only way with my Honda Element that I can leave the engine running with the air conditioner going for the animals was to actually use the key to lock the car. If you use the fob, it won't lock the door. It's a security thing for not having you lock yourself out of your car while the motor's running. I understand that in other years that isn't a feature, but in the 2005 Honda Element, that's how it is. You cannot use the fob to click the door closed, but using the key you can lock it. So when I went in to do my temporary import permit for the car and check in with my visa and do all the paperwork there at IMSS, I just left the animals in the parking lot. It was fairly early in the morning. It was still getting toasty, and it was just hot sun. But they were fine with the air conditioner on, as we were the whole trip. I mean, the air conditioner kept us very nice and cool. So I went in and, you know, it's just, I didn't know what I was doing. Nobody hardly speaks any English at all. And I'm hearing impaired, so I was having a hard time between the language difficulties and hearing, getting the information I needed to get. So you first check in with your visa, and the visa lady was not happy that it had been 4 months since I'd gotten my visa paperwork done, which you're allowed 6 months, so I don't know what she just was not a very pleasant person to deal with, but you know, she got over it because that's the law. You've got 6 months. And so I went through that and got the copies of the stamped visa, then having crossed them, and then I went to get the temporary import permit, which is a whole nother office, all at that same spot. And this is at the Nogales one. And I also didn't realize until I'd read more on a Facebook group on traveling that within 20 kilometers of the border, you don't need to have any of this stuff. So they put the office 10 kilometers after you cross the border. And so luckily, for having read that, I knew exactly what I was looking for, and looked on Google Maps and saw pictures, so I knew exactly what it looked. It's just a dirt road that you take off to this building that's kind of off the highway. It's not like really well marked, and so it's kind of, some people drive right past it. But anyway, so I managed to get the tip for my car, and we were done. So I got back in the car, and as we were leaving, of course, they flagged me aside and wanted to look in the car, um, just to see what was in there. And it was just, bags of dog food and kitty litter and blankets and pet bedding and my suitcase. And I mean, it was clear I wasn't bringing anything. And I asked if they wanted to look in the car top carrier, and they were like, no, we're not. It was really, really hot when I got to Hermosillo. Apparently it was at 4:30 in the afternoon. It was 102 degrees. And I got to the Airbnb and contacted the owner, and I was standing in the hot sun, and I was just getting so frustrated. So I got back in the car and drove around the block and sat in the shade for a little bit and waited until I kind of just cooled down and said, well, I have to get in, so let me try this again. So I went, and then I figured out the sliding door that would open and reveal the combination lock. But I got that open, and it was okay Airbnb, but boy, you kind of touch and go on Airbnbs, I would say. I got out and walked Wookie a little bit, and there's beautiful cathedral, and all up and down the main street is a park, and in between the two lanes of traffic going each direction. And people were hanging out, of course, like they do in Mexican towns, in the evening with babies and their strollers and little kids playing, and people eating and having snacks for the evening. It was lovely, and it had cooled down once the sun went down. So it was a nice town to walk around. The night of June 15th, I spent in Los Mochis in Sinaloa. Saying that the roads in the state of Sonora seem to be really quite good. They were concrete, well maintained, and in great shape. And then there was this stretch that was in between the state of Sonora and Sinaloa that apparently neither state bothers to maintain. And it's just dirt with rocks and broken concrete, and the traffic slowed way down to get through that stretch. It was just a few hundred feet, but still it was just so odd. And the roads were mostly asphalt at that point, which, I mean, it's okay, but it constantly cracks and falls apart and requires filling. So I have to say that the roads in Sinaloa were in much worse shape than in the state of Sonora. I do have a picture of the wonderful place that we stayed in Los Mochis was the Ibis Hotel, and there was a really nice little restaurant right next door called Lola, and I ate there, had really nice healthy food. And then in the morning, the Ibis had a breakfast buffet that was really excellent. If you are going through Los Mochis, I highly recommend the Ibis, and they are completely pet friendly. They had no surcharges, and they were completely happy with me hauling in the cats and the dog. So Sinaloa has a pretty bad reputation in terms of safety, and I really had no experiences that were frightening to me. There was a whole lot of toll booths, and I stayed on the toll roads, which were called cuotas, and I ended up paying quite a lot in tolls. So it's important when you come down to have plenty of money for tolls. There were two checkpoints that I went through. One, they asked for my vehicle import permit, and I just showed him that, and he was very pleasant and smiled and waved me on. And then there was another one, just stopped, and I think they were probably looking for drugs, but I rolled my window down and said buenos dias, and I smiled, and Wookie was, of course, in the seat next to me. I have to say, Wookie was charming. I mean, the toll takers loved him too. The guy just waved me on. There was no past Mazatlan, still in Sinaloa, though. There was one point where these people were not in uniform. They were just dressed in regular clothes, mostly black, and they had a tent off to the side of the road. They saw my foreign license plate and they waved me aside to this guy that was at the tent. This guy, I rolled the window down, and again I just smiled and said, Buenos tardes. And he looked at Wookie and he just says, oh, bye-bye. Have a nice day. Being a single little old lady with her dog, I guess they just didn't really want to deal with me in this area. And I don't know who they were, but I had no problems. And I never, they were friendly. And I have to say, I never felt unsafe. I walking around any of the areas where I stopped and got gas or anything, I have to say, you don't have to worry about being endangered.
The next day was driving from Los Mochis to Mazatlan. Another long day of driving. Just hit the road and got there. I picked the Quality Inn in Mazatlan to stay at because they did allow pets. I actually used Booking.com to turn on the filter for pets allowed, and they did charge me extra for my cats there. It was a mistake for me to stay near the beach. I should have stayed in the center of town. But I like beaches, but I like them nice and quiet and open. And quite honestly, this is a real party atmosphere in this area. So if that's your thing and you want to drink and party and have a good time making a lot of noise, this is the place for you. The pool was full of kids, and then I went down to the beach, and there was loud bands playing and lots of young people, and beach was real crowded. Not my scene at all.
So the next day we drove to Tepic, which I had heard was a really nice place. I have to say, out of the whole trip down in Mexico, Tepic was my absolute favorite. There was so much lovely things about the town. It's just this really nice, there's a lot of crumbling buildings, but it was, interesting in its own way. And I stayed at this sweet place, Casa Mariano, and it's a boutique hotel. Parking was a little difficult. It was down the street and to the right, and there was a paid lot that they had room in. So basically you pull up in front of the hotel on this very narrow street and unload. They help you unload all of your luggage and pets and everything, and they take it to your room. But then you have to drive around the corner and park in this lot that's around the corner. So it's a little inconvenient, but overall, the place was just it was really unique touches, macrame and hanging plants, and a central courtyard that was just festooned with plants. Everybody made themselves right at home. Quite a lovely place, really. Little breakfast bar. Felix is having a little, so we just walked in the door and they immediately feel at home. Little kitchenette. They got high ceilings. It's pretty good, huh? The kitties think it's a good place. The only thing about Tepic is that it was still close enough to the coast that, at least in June, it was quite humid. Not as humid as the coast. I have to say that it was quite uncomfortable in June, and I'm sure it stays that way throughout the summer. Hot and humid and sticky, and you don't feel like really doing a lot of physical activity. At Lake Chapala on June 18th, and I got into my Airbnb that I had rented for a month, and it was just lovely. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope this was helpful. Please do subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment. And I hope to see you in the next one. Take care, bye.